This story begins at the edge of the world, far beyond cities, beyond roads, beyond everything people call home. There are no forests here, no villages, no warm lights in distant windows, only ice, endless white stretching farther than the eye can follow, and silence, the kind of silence that makes a man feel small. Imagine waking up in a place where every direction looks the same. No path forward, no sign of life, only cold, only wind, only the feeling that the world has become much larger than you ever imagined. In 1914, 28 men sailed into that world. They believed they were chasing history. Instead, history closed around them. Their ship was called Endurance. Soon, it would stop moving. The sea beneath them would disappear, and Antarctica would become their prison. But this is not a story about a ship. It is not even a story about ice. This is a story about people who kept moving when the world wanted them to stop. Before the ice, there was a dream, and like many dangerous dreams, it sounded almost impossible. Cross Antarctica, from one side of the continent to the other, nearly 3,000 kilometers of snow, storms, ice, and land that almost nobody truly understood. Today we have maps, satellites, weather forecasts, emergency signals. Back then, people had something much simpler: courage, hope, and sometimes that was enough to start a journey. The man leading this expedition was Ernest Shackleton. He had already seen Antarctica before. He knew what cold could do. He knew storms could erase entire expeditions. He knew this continent had defeated others. And still, he returned. Not because Antarctica was welcoming, because it wasn't. Not because it was safe, because it wasn't. He returned because some people spend their lives avoiding the unknown. Shackleton kept walking toward it. The ship carrying them south was built for ice. Strong, heavy, designed to survive places that frightened most people. Its name came from Shackleton's family motto: "By endurance we conquer." At the time, those words sounded inspiring. Months later, they would feel different, almost like a promise, or maybe a warning. The expedition left in August in 1914. While Europe moved toward war, another story was beginning far away from battlefields. 28 men, one ship, one frozen continent waiting in silence. Imagine standing on that deck. Cold wind, dark water, nothing around you except distance. You believe adventure is ahead. You believe history is ahead. You do not know yet that home is already becoming farther away. Day after day, they sailed deeper south. The air changed. The water changed. The world changed. Ice appeared on the horizon. First, it looked harmless. Small pieces drifting across dark water. Nothing unusual. Nothing frightening. Just Antarctica saying hello. But the ice was already moving. Slowly, quietly, patiently, and somewhere ahead, the prison was waiting. Day after day, Endurance moved deeper into the Weddell Sea. The world around them became quieter, whiter, colder. First, nothing seemed wrong. Ice in Antarctica was expected. Everyone aboard knew that. Everyone had seen it before. Small pieces floated across the water. White lines on dark sea. Harmless, ordinary, easy to ignore. Then the ocean began to change. Slowly, so slowly that nobody noticed it at first. Water became broken plates of ice. Those plates grew larger. The larger pieces joined together. And little by little, the sea started disappearing. Imagine standing on the deck, watching the water vanish beneath you. No storm, no explosion, no disaster, just silence, and ice moving closer, meter by meter. The crew still worked, still joked, still believed the ship would push through, because that was what endurance was built for. Ice, pressure, cold. This was supposed to be normal, but Antarctica had already changed the rules. Then, the ship stopped, not because something broke, not because someone made a mistake. The ocean itself had closed around them. Endurance could no longer move. For the first time, the expedition stopped being a journey. Now it was waiting, and waiting can become dangerous, because movement gives people purpose. Silence gives them thoughts. Days passed, then weeks. The ice kept tightening. Every meter around the ship became pressure. At night, strange sounds moved through the wood. Deep groans, cracks, long echoes under the floor. One man later compared it to something alive. Not attacking, not rushing, waiting, pressing, testing. Antarctica was patient, and patience was exactly what made it frightening. The crew still had hope. They played games, worked, shared meals, tried to protect routine, because routine made everything feel normal, even when nothing was normal anymore. But there was one truth nobody wanted to say. The ship was no longer sailing. They were drifting, and nobody knew where the ice intended to take them. Weeks turned into months. The expedition changed. First, endurance was transportation, then shelter, then home, because home is not always a place. Sometimes, it is simply the thing keeping you alive. The men built routines, meals, repairs, work, cards, conversations, small habits, small victories, anything that reminded them they were still people and not prisoners of ice. Outside, nothing changed. The same horizon, the same cold, the same endless white. Imagine opening a door every morning and seeing the exact same world. No road, no distance marker, no sign that life existed beyond the horizon. Only ice. The nearest help was unimaginably far away. If something happened, nobody was coming tomorrow, or next week, or maybe at all. Then the sounds inside the ship changed. Wood bending, beams shifting, heavy cracks moving through the hull. Conversations faded. Everyone waited. The ice had started pushing harder. Hour after hour, day after day. Pressure against wood. Pressure against hope. Pressure against time. Shackleton understood it earlier than most. Endurance was losing, and when the ship died, their world would become much smaller. No walls, no cabins, no deck beneath their feet, only ice, and whatever came after it. The pressure continued for weeks. Life still looked strangely normal. The men worked, cooked, wrote diaries, played cards. Routine had become protection. Outside, the ice kept moving, slow, quiet, relentless. Every day the ship sat deeper inside its prison. Then the sounds changed. Wood bending, frames shifting, heavy cracks moving through the hull. No panic. Not yet, but everyone understood. Something was wrong. Some men began sleeping in clothes, because if the ship failed, they might need to leave immediately. Imagine lying awake, hearing the thing protecting you slowly break. Then the order came. Leave the ship. Food, tools, boats, photographs, diaries, pieces of old lives. Everything else stayed behind. On November 21st, in 1915, Endurance disappeared beneath the ice. The expedition ended. The survival story began. The ship was gone, but the men remained. Now their world was smaller. Tents, snow, wind, ice. They built camps, organized supplies, cooked meals, created schedules, because order protected hope. Someone cooked. Someone repaired equipment. Someone watched the dogs. Small responsibilities. Small pieces of normal life. But Antarctica never stopped moving. The ice drifted. Cracks appeared. The ocean shifted beneath them. Their camp was floating. Shackleton now carried something heavier than equipment. 27 lives. Every decision mattered. Every mistake mattered. The men dragged boats, pulled supplies, crossed rough ice. Progress was slow, sometimes meaningless. Still, they kept moving, because stopping was worse. The ice would not last forever. Sooner or later, it would break. Waiting was no longer safety. Waiting had become danger. So they packed everything again. Food, tools, boats, the last pieces of their world. They crossed broken ice. Slowly, carefully. The prison that had trapped them was disappearing. That should have felt like freedom. Didn't, because now came the ocean. The men launched their boats. Small, cold, exposed. Nothing like endurance. Now waves replaced ice. Wind replaced silence. And freezing water surrounded them. Eventually, they reached Elephant Island. Remote, empty, still far from home. Most stories would end there. This one didn't. Shackleton left again. One boat, one final attempt. Because staying meant death. Moving meant possibility. Months earlier, they had arrived chasing history. Nobody crossed Antarctica. The mission failed. The dream was lost. And yet, history remembered them anyway. Not because they won. Because they refused to stop. 28 men entered the ice. 28 men came back. And somewhere beneath Antarctica, endurance still rests. In silence.